Welcome to this episode of The Balanced Mind with myself, Kim Searle, and co-host Richard. Today is a little different. We wanted to talk about the different generational traits within businesses and how you can look at leveraging them, the strengths to create a competitive edge. And to that end, we've asked along a guest. We've joined here with Sue Green. Sue, lovely to meet you and have us join us.
Lovely to
Really
be
appreciate
here.
it. So Sue is a visionary HR with a master's in strategic HR management, and she is a full member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. With over 25 years, she has crafted strategic HR solutions that streamline processes and drive organisational successes with big companies like Rolls-Royce, as well as small ones like SMEs and charities. Known for her adaptability, leadership and integrity, Sue excels in simplifying complex HR challenges. Feels like I'm writing your epitaph here. What? One of the things is that she is also a little bit of a tech expert because she has created a nice software solution, which is really where how we got engaged, wasn't it? So you met
Yes.
Richard, who really loved this, a solution that really empowers managers with easy to use HR tools. So if anything, I would have a look at that. So we wanted to bring Sue on because one of the things she talked to us about was generational traits. And for those who are like myself, Richard and Sue, at the older end of spectrum, some of the new generation coming through have traits that maybe we struggle with, or they're not following the rules. And we wanted to just discuss that and have a general conversation around it. So I'm going to open it up today then to say why recognizing these generational traits matters. So Sue, may I pass that over to you first of all?
Absolutely. And thank you very much to both of you for inviting me to join. I do think that this is an incredibly important subject for organisations to embrace because the workforce is ultimately what is going to influence your success or failure as an organisation. And, we've gone through a significant amount of change as organisations. The new Labour government is coming to force, and that's going to inform organisations in terms of change in how they can manage their teams moving forward, as well as lots of technological advances. If I think back to the 80s when I started my career, things were incredibly different. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media. So with that, it presented challenges around, communication style. So I think what's vitally important for organisations now is, the Generation Z that's coming through, they've got a very different perspective to what we had around how they work. They are able to multi-skill on various social platforms. They have a different preference in terms of how they like to communicate and what's important to them. So for organisations, I think what is vitally important is to understand how, your previous generations like to work versus your new generations coming through, because ultimately that's what's going to present the competitive edge.
Yeah, Richard, I think we were just talking there, weren't we, just beforehand about how these differences are already, you're seeing them within your coaching practice, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a very regular theme in the conversations that we're having with practice leaders, practice managers, and the team members themselves. Because there's a reality here, isn't there? For a start off, that your team members, the composition of your team, and the composition of your client base is increasingly going to reflect younger generations. That's the way the world works.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that, and most of the people we work with, myself included, have always been very, very strong supporters of giving young people opportunities. I want to support that, but there are lots and lots of headaches along the way. When whilst I think people recognise that we shouldn't be trying to create mini me's when it comes to development, as you said, Sue. The way that we were trained and developed, and the office environment in the 1980s is very, very different to how it is today, and therefore needs a different approach. We can't just go back to, well, that's how I was trained, so therefore that's how you're going to be trained, because that certainly won't. But at the same time, there is this, that they do have a different approach to life. There's some things that we can really learn from that. Again, the idea of coming in and planning for a 40-year career, that's maybe what we did. It's certainly not how they approach things. They have much more fluid and flexible approach to life and careers, and I think we can all learn from that. But there are practicalities. There's the practicalities of the work environment, and the practicalities of commercial reality, if you like, practicalities of client management. And I think that it's, there are some real growing pains, on both sides there. I think one of the things that fascinates me is, you mentioned the 80s there, and generally when it comes to generational development, it tends to be quite a steady transition. If you look at the children of the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and that, you can see the difference between them. But it happened over a 10, 15-year period. I think I'm very aware now that the young people we're dealing with today are the people who were 15, 16, 17 when COVID hit and the lockdowns hit, and those who were doing their GCSEs, their A levels, who were at university and college then, they were, I think it's increasingly recognised that they were hit at least as hard and probably harder than most with what COVID. And I think part of the issue is that they went into COVID as kids, they came out of COVID, expecting to get into the working world, and there was no real transition. It was pretty much overnight, and I think that's part of the problem. But as you say, every generation is different. We need to find ways to embrace those differences as well as work better together.
So when we're talking about Gen Z, what exactly are we talking about here?
So what we're talking about in essence is...
I don't even know which generation I'm in. I just know it's old.
I'll hazard a guess and suggest that you're maybe, like myself, a Generation X. So that's someone between the ages who's born between 1965 and 1980.
Oh, you're being too kind. I'm actually older than that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're back end baby boomer, Kim. I think that's
Is that what we are? Oh, right. So I'm a baby
so.
boomer. Yeah, I think actually that does ring. But Gen X, I'm going to go in with the Gen X. Who's going to know?
Okay, let's stick with the Gen X for today.
Let's start with Gen X. Okay, yeah.
So your Generation Y is, in essence, your Millennials. So they're individuals that were born between the ages of the years between 1981 and 96. And then you've got Generation Z, which is individuals that were born between 1997 and 2012.
Gosh. Okay. Yes.
And there's a new generation coming through, which is individual called Alpha, which is individuals that are born from 2013 and beyond. So that is our emerging workforce. That's the workforce of the future, which is very interesting in itself, actually, because, with advances in technology, your Alpha generation are going to be truly more global, as well as being tech savvy, as previous generations are becoming more and more. Your Alpha generation are going to be a very interesting one to watch because of all of the changes that are happening in the UK, and also the influences that we're getting globally as well, and how that will emerge.
Well, I feel better for knowing. Thank you. So hopefully some of our viewers, our listeners will also need that. So on the Gen Z front then, I think many people listening to this will have the old way of learning, this is the way you do it, this is the way you behave, and all this sorts of things. Although I can recall companies always complaining, even when I was back in the 90s, how they felt they had to re-educate people coming into work. So I don't think it's a new thing. I think it's a different thing. But what would you say are the traits that we're seeing in this new workforce that we've got coming through, such that those who are listening might pick up some tips as to how they can, manage them more effectively?
So I think that if we look at the Generation Z, I think it's a very exciting time for organisations to embrace the qualities that they could offer them, because from my experience of working with employers who employ Generation Zs, they are a very inquisitive, questioning team workforce. They're pragmatic, they're very ideas focused, and want to be part of the organisation in terms of contribution, coming up with ideas. And they've also got a laser focus around health and well-being, which provides a added dynamic to the organisation. So they place a lot of emphasis on flexible working, for instance, and potentially that presents challenges for organisations around hybrid working. So I think what it highlights is organisations need to have the foresight to be more fluid in terms of their policies, their procedures, their management styles, to embrace, the characteristics that not only Gen Z team players offer, but also, the other generations, the Generation X, which, very much appreciate stability and value and contribution. So I think for employers, they need to have a real laser focus around adaptability to different styles, and putting in place the processes and mechanisms to get the best out of all of the generations and nurture those qualities that all of them offer.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think, as a, I'm a parent to that, to Gen Z. I am, an employer of. I am a mentor and coach too. So I see them from all angles, if you like, and they are ambitious. You can see that how much of what they are is driven. You talked there about, where the global influences and all the rest of it, and you can see how I think they're clearly more impacted by that than any previous generation, and that's entirely down to social media. Their sources of knowledge and inspiration actually come from all around the world these days. And so they are ambitious, they in their own way. They're not so ambitious about the same things that we are, but they are ambitious. They want to progress, they want to take on board responsibility, they want to learn. That's a big thing. They're impatient to want to move forward. I guess we all were when we were younger anyway, so maybe that's not a generational twain. But then the flip side is I think they're more vulnerable, they're more insecure. So when you talk, I was talking to a firm last week, and I was saying with them, look, if one of us was put on a development plan when we were younger, we'd go, crikey, I need to pull my socks up, I'm in danger. Put one of those on a development plan, they'll go, sod it, I'm being sacked anyway, so I'll it's a different response. And that's a bad thing. They view it very differently. I think that's the thing. They do see things differently to us, and we see things differently to them. So the flexible working is a big challenge, because I think a lot of employers want to support flexible working and recognize actually that we probably have to in the marketplace today if we're going to attract people. But there's the commercial reality, and there's that, what does it mean for others? So I think I said to you both off air beforehand, one of the big challenges with the younger generation, look at me, with Gen Z, is getting into work for 9 o'clock in the morning. They will work hard. They will get into the office at 7 in the morning if they need to. This isn't about attitude towards work, but we have this almost like historic thing about 9 o'clock work starts, and if you're in at 9:05, you're late. And then if they're in at 9:05, it's 9:05. What, I'm still going to get my work done. What's the issue here? Now, the issue is that can have an impact on colleagues and on clients and what have you. It's those practical conversations that I think are the challenge. I talked a lot of firm leaders go, we fully support this. These are nice people. These are great people. Fully support them. But they're always bloody late. How do I change that? And conversation after conversation doesn't matter. And it's those fundamentals, isn't it? With yeah, like I say, as a parent, you see the frustrations that your own children, they're all grown up adults now, but you see the frustrations that they have when it comes to work situations. And sometimes I'm like, but I'm siding with the employer, never goes down well, but but I recognize, I get it. That doesn't mean I'm right. It's how you communicate those gaps, isn't it? They have so much to offer. And I think firms that just go, oh, well, that's not the way we work here. I think they're missing well, more than a trick. I think there's a fundamental weakness there. This is a talented generation, but it is a vulnerable generation. It scares me how vulnerable some of them are. Because of the positives of the internet and the positives of social media and the negatives. And I think we see it graphically in that generation.
Well, now you've got me thinking, haven't you? So
that's the whole point, Kim.
Yeah, well, because I mean, I don't see people as an age or a sex or any of that when they come to see me. It's about an individual who has something that's not working in their life and they need to change it. So it makes no difference. And I see everybody as unique and individual. So, I can have 10 clients who come to see me for procrastination and not one of them will be the same. So I love it. So I've not really, I avoid, shall I say, pigeonholing them if I can, because that sort of demeans it a little bit. But listening to this, I know that I'm unique in my ability to, work with the individual. But when you're working with a team, that's a bigger impact, isn't it? You've got to think more. And I haven't managed a team in forever, it feels like, but at least 8 years. So I haven't had to think about that. So, I mean, from a team perspective, then, how can you cross that divide, if you like, from those who were brought up with this is the way you work, this is what you do, this is how you do it, to this younger, more energetic, vibrant, wanting to challenge the status quo, which is always hard, but they're doing it. There's more of it. There's more of an impact, isn't there, going on, I think, as a generation, rather than just, the odd individual, as might have been, when I was in my early career. You'd see the odd person come through a challenge and they'd be in and out and gone. And who knows where they are now. But, now you've got more of them making those changes. How do you cope with that within a team?
I think fundamentally what it comes down to is creating mechanisms within your organisation to know your team on an individual basis and give them the opportunity to have a voice. And building on what you've just said, Kim, I absolutely agree with you that we shouldn't pigeonhole, that there can be characteristics of various generations, but let's give each individual the opportunity to contribute to the organisation, irrespective of their generation, in the way that they enjoy and that also supports the organisational goals. So there are ways in which organisations can do that, whether it's through appraisal systems, having regular one-to-one meetings with individuals to understand from their perspective what their priorities are, what's important to them, and see how that can be aligned with the organisational goals, offering opportunities for development and growth. And that could be through, it's not just about training, it's also about projects, getting individuals who are rising stars in the organisation the opportunity to lead projects which are also business improving as well. I know that, for instance, Google offers, I think it's half a day a week for employees to be creative and come up with business improving ideas. That, can play to anybody in an organisation, and offering reward and recognition which supports what the organisation wants to achieve and also motivates individuals to deliver. I mean, the reality is the first thing that individuals come to work for is pay. 9 times out of 10, that's the reality. But it's more than that. It's that hierarchy of needs that we know about Maslow. Once the pay is dealt with, it's also about how you can contribute to the organisation. So, looking at employee opinion surveys, giving individuals a voice and the chance to come up with ideas as well. So there's lots of ways in which managers can motivate their teams. I think another great way is thinking about how you can keep your teams engaged when they're more dispersed in different areas. We talked earlier about COVID, and that's changed the face of how people work forever. I think it's more commonly accepted that people work from home now. You've got teams dispersed in various locations. How do you keep them motivated? So I think it's important for employers to consider their teams, where they're distributed, how and the mechanisms in which they can keep their teams motivated.
I think a lot of the, I agree entirely, sir. And I think a lot of what you said there, actually, it's rather like you were saying, Kim, this isn't about a single generation. This is about all generations and how you make a team work, isn't it, really? I think there's I think it needs there's two sides to it. One, you need that clarity of system and structure so that everyone can see that everyone's being treated, fairly, if you like. And so, like with your HR Pulse system, so I think every organization, no matter how big or small, needs a structure to its HR, to its systems of progression and review and development and feedback and training and all the rest of it, so that people can see, they can see their plan forward and they know what's happening next. I think that's really important. And then the flip side to that, almost like the human side of it, and people who know me will be rolling their eyes now because they're thinking he's going to talk vision and values again, and I am. And I just think that if you're going to get the best out of your team, they have to buy into the vision and the values of the business. And if they don't know what they are, and if they don't see them reflected in the business, then they're not going to engage. I think, generally, I agree with your point, sir, about the money side of it, and it's a practicality of life. But people want to feel valued, don't they? And they want to feel that their contribution is appreciated and valued, and that the opportunity is there. And I think it's those sort of words that employers need to think about and go, well, are we doing that? Are we giving our team opportunity? Are we showing that we do value what they do? Are we giving them the opportunity to be valued? Are they part of the conversation? Are we involving them in our strategies and our thought processes? Are we giving them the opportunity to get better every day? I think that's, the thing about the generation thing is the older you get, the more jaded you get, and maybe those things could become a little less important. When we were 21, 25, they mattered to us. So it doesn't matter that we were that generation once. It's just that we, as you say, we didn't have the internet or social media. But I think young people, they're looking forward in their life. I haven't making me sound horrendously old. I hate people looking forward. I'm not done yet, but it's really important to them. And so yes, they want to earn money, and there is a bit of they're misrepresented in some respect that because of social media, they all want to become multimillionaires by the age of 22. That's not the case.
No,
they want to be valued. They want to know that what they're doing has purpose. And I think that's how we can close that gap by simply sitting down and having those conversations about, take this thing about timekeeping, for instance. I think as a business has to have rules, society has to have rules. You earn flexibility by having rules within which you can be flexible, don't you? And so a business is entitled to say, look, everyone needs to be at work at 9 o'clock. That's how we do work as a business. It's disrespectful to your colleagues if you're not. If a young person is struggling with that, rather than say, look, this is, if you're not able, we're going to take you down the disciplinary route, and that ultimately has to be a fallback. But to say, look, this is a problem. How would you fix it? Are we going far enough in the conversation to understand? Because they simply may just not see it. They just can't see it as, it is, when you were a kid and your parents are telling you something, you go, well, I don't matter. What's the point? I'm not going to. Yeah. And then when you're a parent yourself, think, yeah, I'm going to apply that same rule. If they can't see it, they can't see it. So engage them in the conversation about, look, ultimately, this is a problem. What would you do to fix it? How would you address it? What, or getting a peer to talk to them rather than just, the boss, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like you say, Sue, I think we have to be thinking far more flexibly. But ultimately, it comes down to what sort of business are we? What are we trying to achieve? What sort of environment we want? What sort of atmosphere do we want? What is our vision and values? Now let's engage people in that from all of their different generations, because they'll all have different approaches to it. But as a business, we have to be flexible enough, don't we, we want the best people.
Yeah.
And the best people are going to come from all sorts of generations, and increasingly younger people feeding into the process. So let's engage with that in the same way that we want them to engage with us. I use us and them. It's not an us and them, but it feels like it, doesn't it?
Well, and I guess my only thing here, thinking about it, is, and I think I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, back when the doctors were striking. So we're not thinking about the striking necessarily, but how they were feeling put upon by consultants and senior doctors and whatever, to do all the work. And I think I said then there was this sense that they'd had to do it to get to consultancy. They'd had to work really hard to do all these things. And there's a bit of jealousy comes in that these guys are coming in and not having to do quite as much, or not do quite such long hours or whatever. And it is hard for those who've come before to realize that actually there was an easier way. And the easier way is not because it's easy, it's because it's different, because they've got the tech, they are that much more knowledgeable and whatever. And it can be hard for those who've trodden the path to make it easier for the generation to come behind. And to be honest, that's what happens every generation. We make it easier for the generation that follows in some way to move forward. Not in all ways, obviously, but for generally we make it easier for them to come through. My God, I was listening to something the other day, and barely 100 years ago, nobody had bathrooms in their house. Now we can have hot showers just whenever we like. Generationally, they've developed, they've grown, and sometimes change is slow, but then it picks a pace. The 90s, when the internet came in, everything moved really fast, social media coming, everything's moving so much faster now that the old ways of doing things are not necessary, I guess is what I'm saying. But it can be hard to swallow as a when you see these new generations coming through and doing things that you wished you'd been able to do when you were younger, whatever it might be. It's got to be a hard pill to swallow.
I think it's, we should all embrace change. The world that we live in today, you create an awful lot of stress for yourself if you don't embrace change. But if you take things, I mean, look, take dress. I wouldn't have been allowed in the company car park dressed like this when I first started training. I'd have been fired on the spot if I'd walked into reception with a polo shirt on. Not because the firm was stickler for rules, but back in 1981, if you're a chartered accountant, that's it's important that you wear a suit and tie. It reached the point where we were being told how to dress when we were cutting the front lawn, in case a client drove by, and then we're talking about the age of power dressing and white, red ties,
shoulder
and
pads, and
all that sort of
shoes,
stuff. And here we are today in a much more relaxed environment. Is the profession any worse as a consequence of it? Some will probably say yes, but the reality is no. And that's an environment that actually suits younger people. And actually, I see quite a lot of young people who want to wear suits again now. They've grown up casual. They now want to go smart level. And I want a firm to be able to say, hey, whatever you're comfortable with, as long as it fits this vision, this value, the values that we have. We just need to look for the positives, doesn't it? And I think the thing is that you can't do that without having an open conversation and without getting it in from both sides, because there's recruitment and retention is tough enough. To be if your business is going to be successful, you need to be employing not just the best people, but the right people.
Mm.
And yeah, particularly from a cultural point of view, the best way to develop your business is to bring people on board before they've been tainted anywhere else. Get them straight from school,
College,
straight from
yeah.
apprenticeship, straight from college. Yeah, because you can then mold them from day one.
Mm.
And we've always believed in that, and we've worked with some amazing people over the years. People who've been written off, but you go, no, I can. I don't care what their certificates say. This is a good person who we can work with because they want to learn and all the rest of it. So I think that that's why it's so important to, as well as giving them opportunity. But it's so important to let them build. But we're just now far more aware of the differences. I think we're far more aware of the vulnerability and the mental health side of things, what have you. It's not just a buzzword. It's real, and it's recognized more now. But it's even more real because we've been through a global pandemic, and that impacted on everybody. And it was tough for a 60-something.
Yeah.
Know how tough it was for our youngest, for instance. Halfway through university to suddenly find yourself back locked up in your old bedroom that you thought you'd left forever, trying to do your final 18 months. These are scars that sit with them. And I think as people, as human beings, we should want to help address that. As employers, we go, I want to help address it, and I want to make money as well. But as human beings, we should go, I want to work with these people. I want to get the best out of them. I want to see them happy again. I want to contribute to them having I've had a fantastic 43 years in this profession. I want to see them have the same, whether it be, most of them won't want 43 years. So they'll want 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, whatever. We as employers, I think we always have a social responsibility to help them. But we have businesses to run as well. So I'm not just saying let them run wild. I'm saying let's work together to see how we get the best out of them and they get the best out of us, because we have a lot to offer. We have a huge amount of expertise and experience to offer. It makes a lot of sense to work together, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's going to, create more and more opportunities for organisations. With the emerging globalisation of workforces, organisations are going to have employees, if they create these opportunities, are going to say, well, this is what is happening in the office in China or America or wherever. Is that something that we could do here? And who knows, that idea could commercially generate a lot of income for the organisation. But for that individual, if that organisation embraces that idea, you just can't put a price on what it will do for them. They feel connected with the organisation, they feel part of it, they feel heard. Quite possibly you can have an employee who wants to stay with you for life if you continue nurturing and encouraging them in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just conscious of time, and there's one question that's really important to the title of this podcast, and that's the competitive advantage. Can we just have a quick round robin on how we see this, being something that will provide some sort of competitive advantage? So, starting with you.
Okay, well, let's think about where we are today in terms of the workforce. I often speak to employers who find challenges finding not just employees, but the right employees with the right cultural fit for them. And I think that anchors very nicely to what you've just talked about, Richard, around values and vision for the organisation. So from an organisational perspective, they can save themselves thousands of pounds by getting the right employee in place first time. So it's about making sure that you've got robust recruitment selection processes in place, which encourage the right people to want to apply in the first place, and helping them with support to make sure that they can feel part of that organisation quickly through induction, through probationary, and then all of the things that we've already talked about individualism. So I think for organisations, if you can get it right first time with your employees and make sure that you're actually able to retain them, it means that those individuals will potentially be part of your succession plan for the future. So that's my perception of where they can create a competitive advantage, because they're getting individuals who can deliver and grow with the organisation as it grows.
Richard, what do you think?
If you look at the challenges that face the leader of an accounting firm today, then they are, recruitment is a challenge, retention is a challenge, skills is an issue, understanding of technology and being comfortable with technology, of the wider internet, of how to communicate via social media and all the rest of it. They're challenges that firms face. Plus, I wrote a blog the other week about how one of the big resources that struggles in accounting firms these days is energy, sheer energy and enthusiasm. Well, young people fix all of those. You bring the young people in and unleash them within your firm, you can fix all of those challenges. As Sue says, these are your rising stars. These are your succession plan. These are the people who can add value to your eventual exit. It's just, and there's more of them than any other level. So I just think that the benefits of bringing them on board are huge. And they keep us young. If we let them, they keep, because that energy and that enthusiasm, that has more power in a firm than anything else. If you want to meet change, you don't do it with that energy and enthusiasm. And if we unleash them, they can bring that. They just seem to struggle to provide that energy and enthusiasm at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we need to work that bit out. Mind you, don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. I must admit, my thoughts are, knowing where I work, which is on the inner world, is that we as humans need to be challenged. Our brain is, if it's not learning and growing and developing, is atrophying and closing down. So having a new set of ideas, as you said, Richard, new people coming in to challenge the status quo is important. And it can be difficult, but I think if we can open ourselves up to what each generation can bring, I think we can then find that as a business, we become more competitive because we are somewhere people want to work, but also you set the scene for others. So as you start to show that you shift and you change, and you're then not just catering for your old set of clients, but you're ready for the new little entrepreneurs that are coming through as well. Just saying. And I just want to end on a Trek story, because I'm a bit of a Trekkie. So have you ever watched, I think it was Into the Darkness, I'm not quite sure, but basically they're on the bridge, they're in this really bad place where they've got to do something that, they just have no choice, no idea what to do. And Chekhov, who apparently is 17, comes up with this amazing idea, this solution, this tech solution, this, innovative solution about how to place the Enterprise in the rings of Saturn or something. And Bones turns around and says, "How old are you?" In other words, what are we taking instructions from a 17-year-old for? And of course, he is backed up by Scotty, who says, "That'll work."
Bravo.
I'm just saying.
Never failed to surprise me, Kim.
Just a little lesson. Sue, thank you so much. I feel like there was loads more there that we could have talked about. And if ever we get to the generational game again, we'll put you in, I think. Richard, is there any last comments from you?
No, just to say thank you, Sue. That was a great conversation. I agree that we could have talked for ages about it. But no, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Any last comments, Sue?
Happy to join, and thank you for inviting me. And just a message for employers: embrace the opportunity to nurture your teams. It'll reap dividends for you.
Oh, perfect. And yes, just thank you very much for listening to us this week. Might have gone a bit over, but we've got another guest coming up in a week or two, which should be very interesting as well.